Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me to just stress one thing before we start this review. And that is, I could have made myself a real easy and short time by just saying Thief 2 is Thief 1 but more. That isn't entirely true though, and making that statement wouldn't be fair to the original developers or to the fans that actually know both games like the back of their hand. So here we are, a review of Thief 2 with some of the basics I forgot to mention last time.
Thief 2: The Metal Age begins over a year after the ending of Thief: The Dark Project, and there are a few new players in town. To remind you, the major factions in the first Thief game were the City Guard, the Hammerites, the Pagans, and the Keepers. Within this short time, the Hammerites tried to recover, but a new branching faction has established itself within their religion. Under the leadership of Karis, an uprising genius engineer with a speech impediment, the fanatic mechanists are born, and they are rapidly undermining the city with their revolutionary technological advancements. The City Guard has strangely begun to recruit criminals and gangsters. The Pagans mostly keep out of the city now, and nothing has changed for the Keepers. Garrett, now equipped with an artificial eye to make up for the one he lost, has returned to his lifestyle of a professional thief. A few jobs later, the former keeper finds out that there's a price on his head and somebody wants him dead real bad. So he begins to investigate and, once again, accidentally stumbles into a world-threatening plot of cataclysmic proportions, forcing our anti-hero to save himself by saving everybody else.
That must have sounded very similar to Thief: The Dark Project for you. But don't make the mistake of assuming that both are the same. That's not the case. It wouldn't be the truth. Instead, you should assume that Thief 2 tries to tell a grander narrative, which comes with positive results and negative consequences. But long story short, one game tries to tell its story with lots of plot twists and turns and just throwing the player for a loop. Thief 2 keeps things more grounded, more consistent, more down to earth.
While that does not mean that there are no plot twists, the twists themselves have less impact than the ones in the previous game, but Thief 2 doesn't want to achieve the same kind of impact to begin with. The first Thief game introduced its world, it explored the Hammerites and the Pagans as some of its major themes. It also introduced the Keepers, the City Guard, the Nobles, and the Lost Civilization, but without venturing too deeply into any of those topics. Thief 2, on the other hand, has no need to introduce its world and spends more time exploring the factions in more detail. This time, the major themes are about the City Guard, the Nobles, and the Mechanists, while telling us a bit more about the Pagans and the Hammerites. As you can see, at this stage, the Thief series uses continuity to expand itself and to tell the tales of the factions and focus, giving the player new lore to grind their teeth into. The writing is of the same quality as the first Thief game and is some of the best you'll ever see in a stealth game.
In my opinion, a story is much more enjoyable if the characters in the universe actually take it seriously, even if, to you, it may seem ridiculous. And in my opinion, good writing isn't funny fourth wall breaks or lame-ass cross-references, seriously. So many games had the potential ruined by that lame-ass shit.
I could be telling you more about the story, but we would be heading into spoiler territory there, so let's deal with the most important aspect of a stealth game: the gameplay. After adjusting the long list of movement options again, things will seem very familiar if you played the first game. Just like previously, you have a light reflecting jewel in the bottom middle of your screen that dynamically shows exactly how much light shines upon you. Left from that, you have your health and selected weapon. Right from that, you have your breath and selected item. You can pick locks by holding lockpicks close to it in the air. You can drink potions, eat food, use keys, or a multitude of other items. You don't get any new weapons in this sequel because all you still need is your sword, your trusty blackjack, and a bow with Hawkeye's whole arrow stash. And you do get a new toy to play with. You have a portable camera ball that you can throw around and easily look around corners that way. You also still have access to invisibility potions, which are still absolutely broken. Flashbangs are back, which are broken as well. A variety of mines, lots of stuff you can pick up and throw around for noise. You have flares, which, why would you ever use them? Speed potions, healing potions, breath potions, the new slow falling potions, and that's pretty much it. Combat is pretty simple as well. Hit someone with a sword and you hurt them bad. Hit them on the back of the head with a blackjack and they lose consciousness unless you're this guy.
Friends, we are one less. Murder!
And for everything else, you either ghost around the guards or use your bow.
That pretty much covers the bases, and if you compare the two games merely based on the merit of equipment or amount of items, then Thief 2 would be a disappointing sequel. However, the biggest difference between the two games is its level design.
The Metal Age, unlike the Dark Project, mostly takes place in buildings or the city itself. You have a total amount of 15 missions in this game, and this time there isn't a pacing problem like there is in Thief Gold. The 10th mission, Life of the Party, is my favorite mission in the entire franchise, and I'm always looking forward to it in every playthrough. Just like in the first Thief game, you have 3 selectable difficulties, while this game tries to spice things up by introducing completely new objectives to higher difficulties. It overall follows the same idea of general completion rate like in the first game. The level design itself was expanded incredibly well. Thanks to the more open-spaced areas, you have exponentially more entry points and just as many options to approach obstacles. This is actually the reason why I prefer the second to the first game. I mean, you could stuff 2 levels from the Dark Project into one big level of the Metal Age. And with the exception of the first mission, that's the regular size you have to expect per level. This also means that it takes about 2 or 3 times longer to complete. The Metal Age has more ground for you to cover, but that's not necessarily a bad thing.
It can really become a problem though. Thief 2, in comparison to Thief 1, may not feature any mazes in which you walk around like a rat for an hour straight or something, with the exception of the final mission. No, Thief 2 has really big levels, and because of that, and because of the fact that you need to keep your objective in mind, otherwise you will get lost. Because of that, the game requires more logical thinking and wits from you as a player, which might become more frustrating the further you keep playing, especially because the hardest mission is the final one. And let's just say it's not as much fun as the previous missions in the game.
This is unfortunately culminated in what I consider to be the weakest finale in the original Thief trilogy, and it doesn't help that these are also the 3 glitchiest missions in the Metal Age from my experience, as you tend to get stuck in secret doors all the time. It starts with mission 13 called Casing the Joint, which ends up having nothing to do with casing the joint. It's a ghosting mission, so you mustn't be caught and you are not allowed to interact with the living residents or guards in any way or form. You break into the mansion, find some information for the next mission, map out the inside and go back out. In mission 14, you go back into the same mansion and this time you're there to steal something. Basically the same missions with different rules back to back. Mission 15, the final mission of the game, requires you to infiltrate a huge cathedral. Find crafting recipes, craft individual pieces of items, and further use them for crafting. And then you go into the second half of the level, which is just as large, has mazes, is incredibly challenging or frustrating depending on your perception. The objectives are the same, repeated up to 7 times depending on the difficulty, and if that's not enough, you're non-stop bombarded by about 100 of the new enemy type in the game. The servants.
What are servants, you might ask?
They're disturbing as fuck, that's what they are. So, is Thief 2 a good game? Hell yeah it is. Is it a good stealth game? One of the best. So, is Thief 2 The Metal Age worse than Thief The Dark Project? In my opinion, and after my analysis, absolutely not. From my point of view, they are equal in quality, both with highs and lows. In the end, it will be up to you how much you end up enjoying each game individually for their level design. The Dark Project is more creative and at some point just batshit insane, but it often throws linear missions at the player that would sometimes be more suited for a Dungeons & Dragons adventure. The Metal Age keeps a more grounded but also extremely morbid tone. However, size matters, and this game is sometimes a bit too large for its own sake. The Dark Project features an overall stronger story. The Metal Age's plot, however, isn't bad in the slightest either. In the end, we are comparing two of the very best stealth games in the entire gaming industry up to this very day, and both of them still hold up very well. Not with the graphics, that barely changed, but with its design. That is why I decided to give this game the same rating as Thief The Dark Project, an 8 with a take a look rating.
Well, this ended up being a rather long review for Thief 2, but now that we got both games down, it's finally time to head into Thief Deadly Shadows, or Thief 3, and Thief, the reboot. Not featuring any subtitle because why wouldn't have one? But before we head into faraway galaxies or into the lethal darkness, I would just like to say thank you for watching. I hope you had an enjoyable time. This video isn't quite done yet either. You don't really think I praise something like player freedom and just leave it at that, right?
Will you beat up a criminal who then attempts to escape, runs into a guard and gets himself killed? Will you get the attention of a combat servant who proceeds to shoot himself with his own bombs if you prove to be a good enough dancer? That aim is bullshit. Will you defend yourself by shooting an incoming bomb with an arrow? Or maybe you are the kind that just defends himself by die, 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 die.